Book 1, Law of Salimi, Chapter 36, B plus versus A plus student. Sorry, B plus lecturer versus A plus lecturer. This chapter requires me to include the following result for my second semester. For my second semester in degree, I took job application process, which is in English, A minus, international economics, B plus, management of change, A, international management, A minus, international banking and investment, A, Islamic business transaction, A, physical supply and distribution or logistic, A, quantitative business analysis, A plus. My GPA for this semester, the second semester for degree, is 3.84. My CGPA is 3.89. The hours earned for this semester is 23, and the accumulated hours is 39. In my second semester studying my international business program at UiTM campus Shah Alam, I seem to have met both lecturers from different spectrum, which reminded me of my experience during my diploma studies. The first part would refer to a lecturer that taught me international economics. This particular lecturer was an amazing lecturer. However, he uses the same old method of teaching which had been very effective for him during his student days. I had an enormous respect for him, but his teaching concept applied by him during our classes were nothing left to be inspired from. He was a stern believer in the notion that no student should deserve a better mark higher than B+, regardless of his or her level of knowledge. Philosophically speaking, I agree with him since no one is perfect. Nonetheless, on the practical sense, I hate him for it. He taught his class by reading from a textbook while students were required to copy every word. I truly despise this inefficient method of teaching. While I did not hate him, in fact, I do love his characteristics as a lecturer, I did not agree with his teaching methods. Moreover, he puts his notion of B+ as the highest mark for any student into actual practice, which explain how I managed to land his awesome B+. After consulting with my head of department regarding the matter, she replied that she was very aware of the matter but could do nothing about it. In fact, she said if she took the same examination as we did, even she, as the lecturer level, would still receive B+ from this particular lecturer. Hence, after hearing that statement, I had to accept that my B+ and move on forward in my life. There was no point fighting in battles that I simply cannot win. In addition, I have an enormous respect for his, which refers to the B+ lecturer's characteristics, because he did everything possible to assist us students. The only issue that cannot be assisted was his notion that no one deserved to have anything better than B+. Evidently, my B+ would probably meant for A+, even though my CGPA did suffer from it quite a bit. Regardless, I was happy to experience that notion because I had learned to never repeat the same concept which appeared to be unjust and unfair to students who truly deserve A+. On the other side of the spectrum was the lecturer that taught the subject of quantitative business analysis. The title A+ lecturer was awarded to this lecturer not because he gave me A+ in his class. It was awarded to him because he could be one of the most ideal and most influential lecturer that I had ever met in my life. I truly wish to model my path of a scholar using his model of philosophies on learning. Obviously, I can sense his aura surrounding him, which was brimming with excellence and finesse. What made it unique was the fact that he can control his aura to a point that I cannot sense anything coming from him if he chose to do so. He was a Chinese lecturer with Chinese name. However, his level of knowledge and the concept of sharing knowledge might suggest that he was a Muslim, even though I had never asked him about it or ever found out any evidence to suggest so. For all intents and purposes of this story, that fact does not matter. The real significant element in this story would be the fact that he was passionate for knowledge in a level far beyond I had ever seen in anyone. Even though he teaches a mathematics subject, his knowledge reached far beyond the boundary of his specialization. He knew at a very high level of knowledge about everything across various fields of studies. For example, he could explain a high-level understanding about flowers, the chemical component of the most suitable fertilizers, ground composition, historical background, and various other knowledge related to any specific subjects across multidisciplinary of knowledge. It was spectacular to watch his talent that was not constricted to any specific field of knowledge. In fact, this diversion of multidiscipline knowledge does not dissipate the knowledge of his specialization, which was mathematics. I believe that his vast knowledge across various fields of knowledge had augmented his specialization knowledge further. As a result, he never brought any book to class because it seemed that everything that he taught during my classes came from his mind. It was not memorization, but rather complete understanding of mathematics. It was marvelous how his mind works, which was inspiring to me to be the kind of lecturer that seemed ideal to me. I wished that I could become as this amazing lecturer with massive amount of knowledge about everything. When I asked him exactly how exactly that he managed to reach this extremely high level of knowledge, he replied that he read daily, with the least time spent was a minimum of 4 hours reading on everything. I was amazed and strived to work towards the same path of acquiring as much knowledge as humanly possible. A part of that, using his vast knowledge, he managed to teach our classes using the best understanding in order to make us understand the formula instead of relying on pure memorization. He would begin explaining a formula from its origin, background history, and leading towards theoretical understanding. As he reached the actual theory of mathematical formula, students do not need to memorize, but instead understood the whole thing. This feature made him an A+ lecturer because he did not rely to the ineffective textbook, but simply developed his own method, which enhanced the effectiveness and efficiency of students learning the subject taught during his class. It was utterly amazing process to watch and more exciting to actually experience firsthand. Next, I would like to explore my special tactics that I tried considering the level of knowledge and open-mindedness of this excellent lecturer. However, I would not recommend for anyone amongst the reader of this book to actually implement this method because it was extremely difficult and I did not see its suitability to anyone else other than me. Did you, the reader, still remember about my level 1 ability, which was to exchange intense emotion into selective memory? As explained in earlier chapter, I had finally begun to develop my level 2 ability as depicted in the anime Law of Yueki. I felt that my level 2 ability involved in the ability to predict certain events when I was focused and provided with adequate information. The reason I used the word felt was because I was unable to actually master this level 2 ability or my inability to use them at will in comparison to my level 1 ability. Even today, I am still struggling to improve my control over this ability. Nonetheless, during my classes on quantitative business analysis, I was able to test this ability considering the lecturer was very open-minded about his students. When he began the class, I would sit in the most front row, which was the closest to him. Most of the time he taught the subject, I would rest my head on the table, which was exactly in front of him. Usually, I also close my eyes, which might let me drift to sleep while still being focused to his class and listening to his every word. When I first did so, he was surprised but did not scold me for doing so. Instead, he chose to test me by suddenly calling me to the whiteboard and answer a difficult exercise question which the class cannot understand. So I woke up, walked towards the whiteboard and answered the question correctly. After realizing that I managed to do so, he just left me alone sleeping in his class. For every quizzes and tests given during the class, I managed to score the highest on the subject. During my free time, I also helped my classmates and on any topics that they cannot comprehend. The subject was based on additional mathematics, which could be very difficult to average students. In my case, I always loved mathematics, and before attending his class, I had completed all of the exercises from several books. Essentially, it fulfilled me with adequate knowledge for me to actually predict the questions that would be asked during quizzes and tests throughout the semesters. Eventually, I was beginning to sleep in his every single class without being scolded by the lecturer because he knew that I managed to score the highest in every quizzes and tests given to the class. In the last day, before the final examination week began, he decided to pose some questions to his students, especially to one student who seemed to be sleeping in his class without fail. He told the students in his class that he had made several observations on the students' attitude. He explained that the students who had the least understanding in his class seemed to be sitting in the most farthest or in the back of the class, whereas as the seating arrangement moved closer to him, the academic performance also increases. He indicated that he was surprised at the fact that his best student in the class was the one who slept most in his class, which he was referring to me. He added that he wished to scold me, but instead chose to test if I really was sleeping and ignoring what he said during classes. He was surprised to find out that I did understand the subject and managed to get the highest marks for ongoing assessment in his class. So he decided to directly ask me, "What is your secret? How come did you manage to sleep in my class yet became the best students?" After hearing his question, I smiled and replied, "I actually did not sleep, but simply resting my head because of being too tired from other classes and my daily commute to the campus. When I rested my head, I would mostly doze off a few minutes, which would be enough for me to feel energized and sustain my focus on your teaching. Moreover, I heard everything that you said, even if I was appearing to sleep in class. As for my secret to get the highest mark in the class, there is none. I studied the whole subject and did every exercise in the subject that I could find before even entering your classes. Nonetheless, I found that your teaching was the best that I had ever seen in my life as an educator. Hearing your explanation about a mathematic formula made me understand without having to memorize any of it. One day, if I manage to become a lecturer, I would strive to achieve your level of knowledge and teach my students as you had shown me in your class, or possibly better than you." After hearing my answer, he smiled with satisfaction. Based on his excellent teaching method, I began to work harder to pursue towards achieving a vast volume of knowledge in various multiple disciplines. In order to augment my specialization of knowledge in international business program, I wish that I would be able to achieve his level of knowledge across various disciplines. It made me realize how grateful I am to Allah the All-Knowing for giving me the opportunity to be a student of this most amazing lecturer that I have ever met in my life. During my second semester, other students became less afraid to approach and talk to me. Some even thought that I simply spent my time studying like a machine or automaton. In reality, they discovered that I was spending my free time in the libraries drawing and at times sleeping. Frankly speaking, I started to make friends quite easily after they realized that I was not scary at all and probably spoke too much for my own good. Nonetheless, I had never been biased about making friends because to me, everyone was the same regardless of race, color, historical background, or any other varying physical features in different students. As most of my classmates began to realize that I was rather a friendly person instead of scary, most students began to spend time around me. Moreover, most clever ones realized that I love to teach and explain any subject that they do not comprehend during class. Considering I could augment my knowledge further through teaching others, I was elated to do it. In addition, many of my friends hates to actually reading the thick textbook. They prefer to hear my explanation since I use simpler words and common examples to improve their understanding. Eventually, our relationship as friends worked out similar to the concept of symbiosis, where both parties from the relationship benefited from our interaction. It was very helpful to me because I spent absolutely focused during class and later teaches my friends who seemed to not focus during class, which left them unable to understand the subject. I also shared my study methods and tactics in order to help them improve their academic performances. Soon, the new environment at UiTM campus Shah Alam became very familiar to me. Moreover, I began to notice how other students from other programs seemed to stare at me for reasons that I never knew or cared much to find out about. It was very probable that most of them knew about the result of my CGPA as well as my most identifiable features of wearing my yellow heavy cold sweater. I guess for other students, I look very similar to Kenny from the cartoon South Park created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. If you, the reader, were curious about it, South Park might not be too suitable for students below 18 years old of age, so you have been warned. Okay, with that ends the chapter 36, and hope to hear you again in the next chapter. Thank you for listening and hope to see you in the next video. Bye.